I'm Anthony Bachman from All Things Good and Nerdy, a geeky podcast part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other fantastic geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
I am the Green Arrow.
The Green Arrow has entered through the front door.
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper. We call it the Starling Tribune. I am the chief editor tonight. My name is SP, and your other reporters for this episode 228 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
I went for the nose, just like you told me.
I think we need to talk about your fighting skills, Chris.
Okay.
And Michelle.
Split up? What? Have you guys never seen a horror movie before?
Zoinks! This podcast is recorded on Thursday, February 14th, 2019, live on Geeks.live.
That's right, and this evening we'll be discussing the most recent episode of Arrow, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the last week that could, and let's be honest here, probably will impact future episodes of Arrow, as well as the rest of the shows in the universe. So The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, they're all fair game as well.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. After the show, you can check out our content at GonnaGeek.com, where you can also find other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles.
Thanks, guys. Michelle, let's just get right into this episode. Why don't you break it down for us?
Sure thing. This is Star City Slayer. It's Season 7, Episode 13. It aired Monday, February 11, 2019. It's directed by Gregory Smith. Credits include 7 episodes of Arrow, 2 Riverdale, 5 Legends, 2 Flash, and 1 Supergirl. Written by Beth Schwartz, the current showrunner. She's also written 27 episodes of Arrow and 2 Legends. And Jill Blankenship. Credits include 7 of The Last Ship and 3 Arrow.
Woohoo! What a great team. I've noticed Gregory Smith's episodes before. This is Beth Schwartz's attempt at a mid-season, I won't say course correction, but this is basically the big reveal episode. We'll talk about that later. So that's probably why she wrote it. And then Jill Blankenship, also an awesome writer. What an incredible team for this episode. Beth has assembled I've talked about it every episode, but it's true. She's assembled great creative teams behind each of these episodes, and that's a mark of a great showrunner. So congratulations, Beth. You have not disappointed yet. So we're going to start by talking about the ratings for the CW shows that are DC comic book related. Not all the CW shows, just the CW comic book shows. And first was this show, Arrow, which is the 13th episode of the 7th season, to a live rating of 1.09. That, once again, was Star City Slayer. Following Arrow, Black Lightning aired the 13th episode of the 2nd season titled The Book of Secrets, Chapter 3, Pillar of Fire, to a live rating of 0.94. It was quite an action-packed episode. And then Tuesday, on the 12th of February, 2019, The Flash aired the 14th episode of the 5th season titled Cause and SXS, which was a wonderful Groundhog Day tribute with a live rating of 1.71. So it's cranking back up in the ratings right there. It's still not over 2 for the live, but 1.71 is pretty good for February. Michelle, did you have a chance to catch all these episodes this week?
No, unfortunately not. I have a 3-day weekend coming up, so I think I'm going to do a little binging.
Oh, yeah. I think you'll like the Flash episode, so we'll talk about it next week if you haven't seen it already. I'm assuming you haven't seen it, right?
No.
Okay, yeah. It was a pretty good one, I think. Pretty bad and pretty good. We'll talk about it next week. Anyway, great ratings for the shows in considering where they've been. So, gotta like that. All right, we're going to jump right into the episode now, and we're going to talk about the overall theme of the episode, and we often attribute that to the title of the episode because the CW showrunners are pretty good that way with us, and the title usually is the main theme of the episode. So, Michelle, what do you got for us?
Well, it's called the Star City Slayer, and it's an actual serial killer coming to Star City, and we get the big reveal that it is Stanley. We knew Stanley had escaped. I have to admit. I mean, I knew he escaped. I knew he's probably coming back, but everything else in the show had been like distracting. I have to admit, I forgot about Stanley.
I did too.
But oh my gosh, I was creeped the bleep out because first off, it starts with him just standing in someone's bedroom, and especially I'm sure that's creepy for everybody, but I'm a woman, so there's an extra level of creepiness on top of that. And we had like this horror show aspect, when they're going into the house, but that final scene with him, Felicity Williams and Oliver, for me, just that moment kind of puts him in one of the better Arrow villains. That's just my opinion. SP, what do you think?
I had forgotten a little bit about Stanley, but remember, I just watched the crossover, so I was kind of almost fresh off of it as well. And I wasn't entirely surprised. I was surprised that he was the person that we were looking at, though, in this episode. I did not equate Stanley to being in this episode. So well done. I mean, so what was it? The first week of December or the last week of November is when we saw Stanley last. Then we had the crossover. Then we had the holiday break. And then we came back and we had the slight build up to the 150th. And now this is episode number 151. And this is when they bring us back. So it was well hidden because of the tempo of the season up to this point. So pretty good for them to do that. On a whole, this episode just seemed to be like the reveal episode. And we lost 2 characters along the way. We had stuff happen to our characters, both in the real timeline and 20 years in the future. So I'm just curious, overall, Chris, what did you think of the episode?
So I thought it was going to be a filler episode at first. Then we got some consequences to things with Echo Callum leaving the show, with the reveal in the future timeline. So while it might have been intended as a nice one-off episode, I think the reveals kind of make it important in the grand scheme of things. And even if it was a filler one-off episode, it was fun. It was a fun mystery. It was fun and creepy and had its scary moments. And honestly, I didn't make the connection that it was Stanley until they showed the slab-side prison uniform in the building. And I went, oh, and it all came together. So I thought it was well done.
I have to agree. It's one of those things. It's like there's that build up when, Renee says it's like, oh wow, it's our first day on the job, and Curtis makes that whole we're being chased by a homicidal maniac, must be a Monday joke and such. But I mean, I loved when they went into like the creepy house, but it's just the 4 of them. And because it's only the 4 of them, we actually get a big reveal. We've been trying to guess how Dinah gets her scar. Who does it? Is it a big fight with a villain? Is it a big fight with Renee? But we actually find out that it was Stanley. What did you think about that, Chris?
I liked it. I mean, we all had our conspiracy theories. Oh, does she get in a knockdown, drag out fight with Renee when things go wrong? But to have it kind of tie into this episode where Dinah is kind of struggling with the fact that she's revealed herself to be a metahuman to the entire Star City, to the entirety of Star City, rather. It's kind of nice that she has that moment, and now she's presumably injured that we don't know if she has the powers anymore. And it adds that question mark things. Because remember, when she was coming out of recovery, rather, they said they're not sure about her voice. Now we know from the future flashback, or the flash forwards rather, she can speak, but we've never seen her use the canary cry in the future. So it's going to be very interesting if you went from this week having Dinah struggle with the fact that she's revealed she's a meta to everyone to no longer having that power potentially next week, or at the very least not being able to use it while her throat heals.
Chris, you bring up a great point. I didn't equate the fact that she hadn't used her powers to the point that she might still have her powers and we just haven't seen her use them. So good on you for cueing in on that. I had assumed that her powers were gone. And when she had her throat sliced, of course, anytime you see a throat slice or whatever, you cringe or whatever. But this one emotionally hit me because I'm like, they couldn't avoid it. They had to do this. Now she's without her powers. I got mad when that happened. And that was the one thing in this episode, the first time I watched it, that, because I watched it twice, that I was just really mad. But then I started thinking about the episode. I watched it another time with a little bit more open mind. And you're absolutely right. Now, in my therapy session with you guys, I see that she might still have her powers. We just haven't seen them. And it would be an excellent reveal for her to use her powers like next week in the future. So, yeah, I'm a little bit more okay with it.
I think it was. I'm glad, and this sounds terrible, I'm glad they went the route of a criminal, of Stanley being the one that did it, versus being someone on the team, because that level of betrayal of it being like Renee or someone else on Team Arrow that does it, I don't know that there's any coming back from that for any of those characters. And you want to think that there's some grand plan at work in the future, and while they're on separate sides now, they're still sort of allied. And had it been someone here who injured Dinah so grievously that potentially her powers can no longer be used, I don't think there's any recovering from that. So the fact that it's Stanley, it kind of reinforces just how bad he is, how terrible he is, how evil he is, because he's pretty much disabled the Black Canary and then gone on to accost Oliver's family. And the real question here now is, I have to bring this up because I'm the designated Laurel supporter for the podcast, I'm told. Does this mean we get the Black Canary now is Laurel Lance? Black Siren becomes Black Canary if Dinah can no longer use her canary cry.
Yeah, that is a big question. We know that Dinah can't use her powers for some time because it does take. I hope they do that realistically. You can't just have your throat cut and then all of a sudden be able to talk properly the next week. That is, I know this is a TV show with superheroes, but we have to have a little bit of reality in there to make things believable.
Unless she has super healing, which she doesn't. That's not her power. Yeah, I totally see this taking a while to manifest. She might actually be out for an episode or two while she recovers, and then we bring her back. And I don't know, when is the Siren episode supposed to be, or the not the Siren episode, the trio episode?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. They teased it. I'm not sure when.
I want to say it was like episode 15 or 16. This is episode 13. So
16 is the all future episode.
Okay, that's what I'm remembering. So we'll see when the Birds of Prey come up. I always stumble with that name. I'm sorry, but it's the Birds of Prey that we've been teased that we will have in the season. So she's got to be. I would think that she would be ready to go at least physically for that episode. But maybe they're protecting her during that episode. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well, it could be she's just a cop. One of the things about Stanley being the one to cut her throat, Dinah's been the captain of the police force. She's real, trying to build up faith in the, police. And I like that she's been mostly a cop and just using her powers minimally. In the comics, you had Montoya, who's a detective and such. And so there's a way of having Dinah kicks butt just being Dinah, being a cop and having that training, and she's smart. So she could be part of the Birds of Prey without her power. It could be, Dinah the cop, Laurel being Black Siren or Canary, Felicity being the Overwatch. Maybe they're going to go rescue Huntress, because I don't like the fact that Huntress's mask was a collection in that guy's little basement.
Yeah, fortunately, by the way, we had mentioned the throat slitting last week, and we didn't know if it pertained to Huntress and to Ragman. Obviously, it didn't, because it had to deal with Stanley now and him killing his parents, his brother, and anybody else that got in his way.
Well, Dinah was saved because Curtis had one of his T-spheres and was able to cauterize the wound. Standard TV fare of cauterization, doing everything. But this ended up being Curtis's last episode. How do we feel that it was just him, just all of a sudden in the middle of the season, he's taken a job in DC and he was offered a promotion, a really nice promotion in Argus. I mean, Diggle tried his best, but it was basically just, I got a new job. I'm signing over Helix. Bye. And not even like a party. We don't even know. I guess his cop boyfriend, it didn't work out. Or maybe they're moving away together. I don't know.
They didn't even talk much in the police station, though, when they were side by side. So not even any like long lingering glances or anything. So I guess the assumption is they're not together, or they're no longer going to be if Curtis is going to DC, I imagine.
I'm sorry.
One of those plot lines that just, got lost. And you got to remember, Beth Schwartz is doing some correction, at least in her mind. It's obvious to me that's what's going on. She's doing some correction of some plots. So the whole thing about Black Canary getting her throat slit and then maybe reverting back to Laurel might be her way of correcting that, what she terms to be a mistake along the way, and it really should be Laurel Lance and not Dinah. But in the case of this, it could just be, well, we need to shore up Team Arrow, or maybe she's trying to give characters some graceful exits before the fall really happens at the end of the season here, and that we get Felicity going into hiding, and we get a reveal on that later on that I can say I was right about. But there was the whole question of Oliver in the future too, so I don't know what she's setting things up for, but this just could have been a graceful exit for Curtis. He's not going to be used for Helix anymore, which we have been postulating is the new security program that Felicity has been working on. And he really wasn't, he was a secondary character really at best at Argus. I mean, Lila's not even all there the whole time. And then all of a sudden they get badges. We talked about that last time. All the Argus people have badges for Star City Police. It just seems like a contradiction in federal and local law enforcement that I don't even necessarily think is legal. So having Curtis leave might have just been able to solve some problems, and let's just have him in a graceful exit and on a high note, and then we'll go from there. Remember, Ragman kind of left about the same way, right? Because one episode he was there, and the next he's like, no, I'm going to do some good in the world, or whatever he said, and he left. So it's kind of like that.
And this does explain why in the future, when they're talking about the Mark of 4 or whatever, they don't reference Curtis in regards to the Mark of 4. So they've known this was coming for a while. Echo Callum's mentioned that on Twitter and stuff, and in his farewell note that he had told them he was planning on moving on. So they're able to write to account for that, and they don't have to try and figure out, why isn't Curtis showing up in the future? Well, presumably he's living the life in Washington, D.C., helping others, and wasn't in Star City or the Glades when whatever happens.
We haven't seen Emiko or Laurel in the future either, have we?
No, we have not.
So there's still a couple of threads there. But talking about the future, last week, Connor and Mia found the bunker. Connor just tagged along. And our team of Dinah, Zoe, William, and Roy are trying to find the bombs, and the Archer program's not really working. And they're like, well, maybe she hit him. And they're like, where? And Roy's like, I got an idea. And they ended up going to the bunker. And SP, what happened to him?
Well, they get tranked, basically. They just, boom, that's it. And all four of them, really quickly, they all get, which is kind of amazing. I don't know who did it, if it was Connor Hawk or if it was Mia Smoke, by the way. We'll talk about that later. So I don't know which one of them did it, but whoever did it aimed really well to get all four of them in one shot with the trank darts. And then they were split up. So William and Zoe were together, and Mia was interrogating them. And then Connor had the other two up. And the other two are known threats. So Mia, I think, just wanted to take them out of the equation and start kind of picking on the weak ones, so to speak. And Yeah, there was a huge reveal that happened at the very end. And do we want to talk about that now?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's first off, there's the smaller reveal that Connor is indeed Diggle's son, but we don't know if it's JJ. We just know that it's Diggle's son, and that is indeed Connor Hawk. Everybody keeps like blowing over that. I think that's a good reveal. But in the reveal, that's a big reveal, but really not a surprise to us, is that Mia is Mia Smoke, as we learn at the end of this episode that Felicity is a pregnant.
Bum, bum, bum.
How are we feeling about this? That we basically called it, but we didn't want to be right.
The shipper.
About her being pregnant, or about what? Which part are we right about?
Well, remember we were like, well, she's probably Felicity's, because Oliver's gone and maybe they split up and all this type of stuff. And then we were like, Mia being Felicity's kid is obvious. Maybe there's something else going on. And so we tried to speculate about other things because we know the comic book stuff and all this everything. And then first off, she doesn't recognize William. So that's something we need to talk about. And second, she's Mia Smoke, not Queen, but Smoke. Like I said, it's something that we thought it was possible. And lo and behold, we were right when we really didn't want to be right. I mean, I was hoping it was going to be something a little bit different, but okay, I'll roll with it.
Yeah, I was hoping for something a little different myself. That being said, am I shocked that this is the route they went? No, because it's what the shippers have been clamoring for a little bit. And David Ramsey was kind of screwing with people at cons last year, talking about Olicity baby. So we knew it was coming.
So Mia Smoke, Connor Hawk, Curtis is gone. William is gone in the today timeline because he went and lived with the grandparents, so to speak, because he just wants a normal life. And Dinah gets her throat cut. We find out that Stanley's the guy sending out notes. And William and Mia find out that they're related, brother and sister, half brother and sister or something. We're not quite sure Oliver is the father, but I would think with the blood tests that they took, with Dr. Schwartz, I think that's what they were insinuating. And that's what you were referring to, that the blood test is what was determined that Felicity was pregnant. And you didn't really understood that until Mia said her last name, Mia Smoke. So then you're like, oh yeah, that's how it all went. So you had the revelation in the present and the future in the same episode. So this episode moved a lot along in a very short amount of time. It's an entirely new ball game almost next week. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, me neither. I have no clue. Well, next episode, which I think is March 4th as we record this, but regardless, the future has set up to be very interesting now. And I'm almost more interested in the future right now than I am the present day, just because they've dropped that big bombshell now. And you're like, okay, what's the fallout?
Here's the thing with William. Like at the beginning of the season, he said that Oliver and Felicity left him and abandoned him. Well, they sent him away to boarding school for a semester. So about like maybe 4 to 6. And he comes back and he's angry. I get why he's angry. He didn't get to come home when his father got out of prison. He didn't get to come home for Christmas. So he is angry. But then he calls grandma and grandpa. That's a move to call in the grandparents.
It's a power move right there.
Yeah.
Smart kid, actually.
But that does lead to a better question, is if the grandparents are in the picture, how did they not get custody versus the father that never knew about his kid that is a drunken billionaire playboy at that point in time?
Well, the way the courts generally work, because I've been through this before, is that they want to try to keep the core family together as much as possible. And unless it's something like I was just going to say convicted felon, but unless it's something like you can clearly demonstrate is going to be not the best interest of the kid, the courts try to keep the parents involved as much as they can. And then the next step here was that the grandparents said we should have done this before. So a little bit of it's on the grandparents, because all they had to do is come in and file, and that would have given Child Protective Services and the courts an option. But if you lack that option, you got to go with what's left of the core family. In this case, it's Oliver and Felicity.
And then at the end, William decides to go to his grandparents. Oliver gives him the choice. First, Oliver's like, no, you're going to stay. I'm your dad. But at the end, he's like, you know what? You've been through a lot. What do you want? He's like, I want to be a grandma and grandpa in Central City because that place is safe. Anyway, then he says in the future that Felicity leaves his life. He doesn't say about his dad. Because at the end, Oliver is like, you always have a home here. I'm still your dad. Call me whenever. In the future, he says Felicity just up and left his life and then contacted him out of the blue, and that's why he's here. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, this really leads to Oliver being dead or captured somewhere or just out of the picture somehow.
That's what they want us to think. And I think just like Felicity is still alive in the future. That was another reveal, by the way. Felicity's still alive in the future. Called it. I think Oliver's still alive, but I don't know what happens to them, why they go underground. You can't have next season of Arrow without Oliver Queen. I mean, we talked about it before. It is possible, but I just don't think this show can survive without Stephen Amell, especially the crossover coming up. Stephen Amell's got to be around for the crossover.
So presumably something has to happen where they bring back William temporarily or something like that. Something terrible happens and they push him away for his own safety, because that's straight out of the Oliver Queen playbook. Both him and Felicity push William away, and that's why he feels like he was abandoned by them. Now, how that's going to happen, I don't know. And here's the other twist on that. It has to happen before baby Mia's born, because he doesn't even seem to realize he has a sister until she reveals who she is. So that's my conspiracy theory I have going now, is that this fallout happens before Mia's born. He doesn't even know about her, other than when she says, I'm your sister, Felicity's my mother, Oliver Queen my father, things like that. Now, we might get resolution in the next episode on March 4th that kind of changes that thought, and you find out that, yes, they knew about each other, but she just didn't recognize him or acknowledge him for some reason. I don't know.
Because he does know her. He was introduced to her as Maya and Black Star.
Right.
And if you haven't seen somebody since they were like a baby, you're not going to recognize each other when you're adults.
That's
especially
true. That's true, but I felt like the reaction we got out of him in this episode when she said he was his sister, and maybe I'm reading way too much into it, was not, oh, hey, I didn't know it was you, versus, I have a sister?
True.
Maybe I'm reading into it too much, or maybe I'm just letting my head lead me down a path that isn't quite where they want us to go. But my read on it was that he didn't know he had a sister. Similar to what Oliver's having this year when he finds out he has another sister. So we have that theme carrying over from father to son. I like the symmetry of it, so that's probably why it doesn't happen.
Yeah, we didn't get Laurel in this episode. Supposedly she was on a business trip, probably to, learn how to be a lawyer, and a little bit better.
She's learning from Jimmy McGill.
Especially since in the last episode she had in the documentary her saying, I know that legally that vigilantes shouldn't operate in this city. And, well, they do. So maybe, the Central National Bar Association was like, we need to bring her in for some training or whatever. So she wasn't in the episode. Emiko was not in this episode. So not everybody was present.
I'm going to throw this out here. Is Oliver the daddy? Is this... I mean, we're assuming that Felicity's pregnant. And then there was the big reveal that that's Felicity's daughter. I mean, we're here assuming, okay, 99% that that's Oliver's kid as well, blah, blah, blah. 1% chance that it's not.
1% might be high, but sure, I'll go with that.
Might be another reason why, Oliver and Felicity did have marital problems. Those marital problems can come back.
That's true. I mean, he was in prison for a while, but it seemed like she was more concerned about hiding and keeping William safe than anything else. Like, she didn't even flirt with the dude at the coffee shop when he was trying to flirt with her. Man, I'm reading way too much into it again. So I think it would be odd that she would step away from Oliver there. But hey, if there's one thing we've learned in this show is that nobody really stays faithful to each other in this show in the Queen family.
I'm going to step in on there. I think the two are faithful together. And I think Oliver's got to be the baby daddy here. I think there's no question about it. I think the question is, why is her name Smoke and not Queen? And I think that's probably because they're in hiding. And maybe they think they can hide Smoke better than Queen as a last name.
Or she's the heir to Smoke Technologies or whatever it is that we hear about too. So she went with that name for those purposes versus being Mia Queen. And plus there's a bit of a more negative connotation in Star City and the Glades for someone with the last name of Queen, I imagine. Especially if the vigilantes are the reason that Star City fell, like we heard last week from her.
Very true.
Or she just took the name because she holds her father responsible for things, or she feels closer to her mother because maybe Oliver disappears when she's a young child because of events out of crisis, or to feel like he has to protect his family. There's a lot of things that could happen to Oliver between then and now. I don't know. There's a lot they have left to reveal that's got us all theorizing and putting out a bunch of weird conjecture, but as fun as it is, we have no clue at this point. Let's just enjoy these theories while we've got the chance to toss them all out there, and then we can come back and laugh in 6 weeks when we're like, why the heck did we think that? What's wrong with us?
Well, Chris, if you want me to start naming all the ways that's wrong with you, we could do it now, or we could wait for another time. We could do it on the show. We could do it off the show. I mean, it's really your call.
So I think
episode.
We should make a new show called thingswrongwithchriscast.com.
You get on that.
I'm sure there's some ex-girlfriends of mine that would be happy to chime in on that.
He might actually already own the URL.
Well, off to Google I go.
Well, while Chris is off to Google, SP, is there anything else about the episode you want to talk about?
So Stanley, when he was in the apartment with the Queens, was really creepy. Really creepy. And we know he's creepy. But I don't think we all knew he could be like super villain sort of creepy. And just like the show had problems originally developing Diaz, I think they had a little bit of a miss when they were developing Stanley, because we all kind of forgot about him, right? So yes, we know he screwed up. Yes, we know he's capable of doing this, but we had no idea that he would execute something as creepy as this. We thought he was going to get Bad Diaz or something like that in the future. So I think it was a great surprise, but I think the show, if they're going to do, unless they wanted to surprise us, because I think they did, but I think the show needs to do a little bit better job of developing the villains if they're going to develop them on a step-by-step basis, or just come in with a villain that's really bad and give them a backstory, one of the two. And I don't know. I think there was just a little miss in this case. It wasn't as bad as Diaz, but I think there was a little miss. What do you guys think? Am I off in left field here?
I like the fact that we forgot about Stanley. I think that's part of his problem. He was given medicine by his father. His brother tried to protect him. Then his brother wanted to put him in Arkham. He's one of those guys. Remember, in prison, he came off as weak. He weakened himself. I shouldn't be here. I need to be your sidekick, Oliver. I'm your best friend, Oliver. We make a great team, Oliver. And then when Oliver during that whole Diaz infiltration, we had that scene where Stanley incapacitates Oliver, and he's like, Oliver, I'm your best friend. We need to leave. We need to be together. And then when he escapes, he just straight up murders Brick and then goes. And having someone like that, someone who presents themselves as weak and such, having him just sort of like go and slide under a rock and stew is really, it made him creepier because we forgot about him, and that's what he hates, but yet he uses the fact that everybody forgets about him in order to plan his murders. Because remember, this is like the third time he's done this, the third time he's actually had a spree. And it's just, that's what it makes, for me, they did a good job, because this is a character that goes away and then comes back and drugs you and kills you in your sleep.
Right. I also enjoyed it. Like Michelle had said, the fact that they made it so that he could be forgotten. Normally that's like a knock. You're like, oh, I can't believe we forgot about this character. They should have kept him in the back of our mind. No. That's what they wanted, because that's his MO, is that he slinks off, puts the plan back into play, and then wham, he's back again. And it works. I liked the reveal that it was Stanley. I liked how broken up and obsessive he still is with Oliver, but now even more unhinged in that regard. So while he's kind of, the culmination of his arc is done in one episode, I liked it. I like it better than what they've been doing with Diaz this season, at least.
Anything else you want to talk about, Chris?
Oh, there was something I had in my mind and I forgot. Do you think Curtis is going to leave any T-spheres behind for people to use, or is he taking all the T-spheres with him?
Well, technically, he actually developed them under tutelage with Felicity and working with Team Arrow. So I think legally the T-spheres are the property of Team Arrow. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm as good of a lawyer as Laura Lance is. But I think legally he should.
I would love to see them come back into play in some way, shape, or form. Especially, it'd be really cool just to see it happen in the future. Like, they find a rogue T-sphere that's left in the bunker and they're able to use it for something, or something like that, just so that a little bit of his legacy carries on. It's not just like, oh, he's gone, you can forget about him now.
Well, I think we all agree this was a creepy episode. It had a lot of revelations. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a couple of weeks because Arrow doesn't come back until March. Until then, we're going to go back to covering Legends. So next episode, we're going to cover Dancing Queens. That's Legends Season 4, Episode 3. Originally aired Monday, November 5th, 2018. When the Legends discover a fugitive is hiding in 1970s London, they realize he is part of a gang that is targeting the British monarchy. It was directed by Kristen Wendell and written by James Egan and Morgan Faust.
Live from the Starling Tribune main news desk on floor 52 of the Starling Tribune Tower, it's the weekly news roundup with chief news anchor Michelle Ely. And now, Michelle Ely.
I just have two pieces of news. First, as was stated, Echo Kellum definitely left the show. We're assuming that the younger actor, Jack Moore, who plays William, left the show. Maybe he might make another appearance, but really, he's basically gone. But the big exit, of course, is Echo. And he posted to Twitter, "I am so thankful to have been part of this amazing show for the last 4 years. It has truly been a pleasure to get to work with such wonderful human beings on a daily basis and to interact with all the fans who make the show possible. This has been the most exhilarating experience I've ever had, and I would definitely pop in here and there. You haven't seen the last of Curtis Holt in the future. Most importantly, thank you to all the fans who accept me on this fantastic journey. I'll always get to say I was Mr. Terrific. That's so damn cool. Excelsior!"
Nice send-off.
I mean, he said you haven't heard the last of Curtis, so maybe he just pops in every once in a while. He goes, "Oh, I forgot. Here are some T-spheres." I don't know.
So he did do an interview with a TV Line where he mentioned the fact that he told the producers and the showrunners that he was kind of ready to take a break from things for a little bit, so they knew it was coming. And also they asked him, they said, so are you going to come back? And he said effectively in those interviews, well, nothing's impossible in these shows. So he has not shut the door on coming back. So it's entirely possible, much like we never expect to see Colton Haynes return as Roy, we could see Echo Callum return from time to time as Curtis. So maybe for the crossover at the very least, that'd be cool.
I'm seeing a lot of turnover in the cast for this show. And I'm wondering if it's normal, because in the shows that I'm used to, it's not normal to have massive cast changes, at least for a long running show, until you get to the end point. Maybe that we're at the end point now, but it's been in this show all along.
I mean, we are up to season 7 right now, and for the sake of comparison, if you go back and look at Smallville, it was around like season 5, season 6 when they started shedding a lot of the original cast. And I want to say by like season 8, the only 2 original cast members left were, oh wow, brain fart, I forgot, Tom Welling and Allison
Mack.
Allison Mack as Chloe. They were the only 2 original cast members left on the show. And when it was all said and done, I think at one point it was Tom Welling that was the only one, because at one point Allison Mack took a brief hiatus from the show. So he was the only person that made it all 10 seasons on Smallville. So it was a CW show as well. So it's not unheard of that they just kind of keep the ensemble coming and, for lack of a better term, bring in the next pretty person to be on the cast, because CW shows are full of very pretty people.
In my next piece of news, we have another streaming service coming.
Yay.
Oh, wonderful. Woo.
Yeah, one that I won't get.
Me too.
Yeah. Warner Media is set to launch its own streaming service, which will seek to compete against the likes of Netflix and Hulu, as well as Disney's forthcoming launch of Disney Plus. What does that mean for us? Well, it means that most likely all of the CW shows that are on Netflix are going to leave. The CW and Netflix have a deal which sees the channel shows debut on the streaming service just weeks after the season wraps up. That deal, however, is set to expire this spring, and it's not expected it'll be renewed. As Riley explained, Warner Brothers is very interested in putting those titles on our platform, which means Warner Brothers would likely retain exclusive streaming rights to shows such as Supergirl, Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, so on and so forth. Don't know if it's going to be folded in with DC Universe. Don't know pricing. There's supposed to be a beta form by the end of the year, but like, this is getting ridiculous. It's getting to the point where it's almost as expensive to get all the streaming service plus internet as it is to have cable now.
You guys, a lot of people were chiding me about not wanting to get CBS All Access to watch Star Trek Discovery. And I just saw this happening. So I was like, no, I have cable right now. That's what I'm paying for. So I'm not going to pay for all these services. And now we're at the point where you said it's the same price. I don't know, guys. I'm at the point where if I cut the cord, I'm screwed. And if I keep cable, I'm screwed because the prices are so high. I don't. It's just no good option right now, and I think there'll be a resurgence of other means. People trying to get a hold of this stuff with questionable legality, and I just refuse to cross that road right now in my life. I want to stay legal and pay for the stuff, and give the shows the rightful due, the shows and the movies that I am paying for it. So I don't know what the future holds here, but I think something's got to break. Like, maybe the prices need to come down a little bit to make it a little bit more palatable. Because if it's a subscription like $3 a month, that's different than a subscription of $15 a month.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm getting to the point where I might start. I don't know if I want to keep Netflix or maybe pause it for a while because I'm not really watching anything on it. My mom loves Outlander, so Outlander's done, so I got Stars for her for as long as Outlander was on. And so I just stopped, Stars, because that's one of the things about Amazon. You can turn that stuff on and off. When Game of Thrones comes, I got to turn on HBO because I want to watch that. That's like going to be $15 I don't know, like $10, $15 a month. It's very interesting. They think it's a little bit here and it's a little bit there, but it's like packaging peanuts, right? There's a thing over there and there's a thing over there, and when you put all the peanuts together, you got to realize you have a big box full. And when you've got like 5 streaming services, that's $8 a month. That's $40 right there. Internet's at least another $40 to $50. There's $90 right there. Everyone keeps forgetting that to cut the cord, you have to have internet. You got to have something. You got to have a cord of some sort. You either have to have an internet cord or a cable cord.
So we're getting to the point where a lot of people, including myself, we turn off services willy-nilly. Like we're using Hulu right now because we're rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Rec. I'm sure we'll turn it off when we're done with that. HBO we turn back on for this upcoming weekend because John Oliver's back. So I kind of watch these things and turn them off and on as I want them. And a lot of these are easier if you get them through Amazon because you can just manage them all through your Amazon account, like Cinemax and things like that. So I think that's the nature of the beast we're at right now. And it's a pain in the butt, and I don't like it. One thing that people need to consider is it's almost getting more cost effective if there's a few shows that you really like and always want to be able to guarantee that you can rewatch them, is to buy the season pass. Now, assuming you don't get screwed like I currently am with Amazon and the CW feuding, the season pass, you can find them on sale often when the seasons start, and when it works, you get the next episode like at 12:01 a.m. So like I do that for like The Rookie. I think I've got it on. I've got a couple History Channel shows I picked up for 99-cent season passes. And when you buy it that way, it's cost effective. Now, if you buy the season pass up front, you're talking about $30, but $30 for 23 episodes in HD, not terrible. It's something to consider, especially on those shows you want to guarantee that you can watch at all times. I'm just really hoping that Warner and Amazon stop feuding at some point in time, so the season pass I had for both Supergirl and Arrow this season finally fills in, because I haven't gotten the last 3 episodes of each of those shows.
So, Michelle, you reminded me of something, your analogy there, and I just want to take it one step further. So, you guys ever see that movie Real Genius with Val Kilmer?
Oh, that's a long time ago, man.
Yeah,
Maybe.
right, but you've seen it, right? So at the end of the movie, and I'm going to spoil this 30-year-old movie right now, but at the end of the movie, they stick this big popcorn bowl in the middle of this house, right? In the middle of this beautiful house that this dick of a professor is renovating or building or something like that. So imagine those popcorn kernels being all these networks that people want us to buy into, right? Well, when the bill comes, it's like when the laser then shoots down into that bowl of popcorn, and all of a sudden the bills start coming due for all these streaming services, and they keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming, and sooner or later it just busts out the house doors, windows, and takes the house off the foundation because it's just so much. And I think that's kind of a good analogy of where we're headed right now. And we all knew it was coming, but now that we're here, it's like I didn't want that. I just wanted the 3 channels that I wanted. Sci-Fi Channel at the time, Sci-Fi Channel, and then a couple other channels. That's all I wanted. Maybe even the Weather Channel. And now it's like you got to pay for each individual channel. Anyway, I'm not getting this Warner thing if I can avoid it.
It's one I would turn on for a month or two to catch other shows potentially. I don't know. Maybe.
I like your solution, Chris. Just buy the season pass for the shows that you want.
Yeah, it's real easy on iTunes and Google and Amazon to be able to do season passes. And I would encourage you, if that's your jam, slickdeals.net. I'm not plugging for them, but I'm saying that's a good place to go to find these deals, because that's where I found like Arrow Season 7 for $1.99 season pass. Now, like I said, I haven't gotten anything past episode 9 on that season pass because of contract negotiations, but you can find those similar deals on Google and on iTunes as well. And then you can play them on all sorts of devices.
Or you can do I have like the rotating $8 a month thing where I turn stuff off, turn stuff on, and that's the thing.
What a pain.
Well, today is Valentine's Day, and it looks like Chris has a news item that's romantic.
It is. This popped up in my Instagram earlier this week, but Melissa Benoist is engaged to Chris Wood. So Kara and Mon-El, if you want to go with their characters in show. So Melissa Benoist announced her engagement to her former castmate Chris Wood on Instagram. They shared that happy news on Sunday, February 10th. She took a photo of herself with her ring and her fiance saying, "Yes, yes, yes, it will always be yes." It is a massive ring, and if you go and believe what people are putting on the internet as they research it, it probably cost about $100,000 is what they're saying. That's a big rock in that ring, and I bet it's not kryptonite.
If you are going to hook Melissa Benoist, then yeah, you're going to need about $100,000 ring. I don't know how I feel about Supergirl being married in real life. I mean,
well, she was when she started the show too.
I didn't need to know that, Chris. Thank you for reminding me, unfortunately. But yeah, I'd like my Supergirl to be unattached and having to go through all of the relationship stuff over and over and over again.
Well, that's in the fiction, but Melissa, we are happy that in real life you have found love and happiness. So good for you. And that's all for the news.
We actually have some feedback again from P-Fruit with our video last week. And once again, it is another long feedback. So thank you very much, P-Fruit, for giving it to us. I'm going to, take this one by one here, one paragraph at a time, and then we'll stop and discuss it. So she said, first, we got a documentary and now a horror episode. It's nice that after 7 years, they are still doing new things to keep the episodes exciting. And Brandon Fletcher did a great job as Stanley. He was very creepy. The one complaint I had was the amount of time spent on trying to save Dinah. It really wasn't suspenseful because we know that she survives in the flash forwards. Well, it was still traumatic. I mean, you got to go through the trauma of it all. So what do you guys think? Was too much time spent on the saving of Dinah?
No, I mean, we knew that she's going to survive, but it's more of what method are they going to use? And for me, going through my head is like, how are they going to fix this? And what does it mean for her powers? And we got the payoff for that. So I'm okay with it.
And she had to have, and she got that moment of trying to moment. So it blended into a plot point. So I'm okay with it.
Okay. Moving on to our next paragraph. I'm okay with Curtis leaving. The writers seem to be struggling to incorporate him in the story for a while now, but maybe he will show up again for the next crossover since they will probably need every hero they can get. Also, his exit gives Felicity full control of Helix, so Smoke Tech can finally rise. I think that him coming back for the crossover would be cool, but we haven't had exited superheroes come back for previous crossovers. What do you think, Michelle?
Well, it's going to be Crisis on Infinite Earths. It doesn't necessarily have to be our Curtis that they run into. They could run into Earth 37 Curtis, who does something different or whatever. Doesn't have to. Remember, we've got multiple Earths, so we have multiple Curtises out there.
Okay, I'm good with that. Moving on to the next paragraph here. William is going to live with his grandparents makes sense. I'm glad it wasn't Oliver sending him away for his safety, but instead giving him a choice in what happens to him. I am incredibly curious about why William feel like they abandoned him when we see that it was his decision to leave and Olicity said they would call, visit, etc. I appreciate the detail of having Felicity show him the trick on the Rubik's Cube since it was the flash forwards at the beginning of the season, but that still leaves me wondering how William knew where her office was in Smoke Tech if he left before the company was built. Yeah, okay, there's some plot issues that they're going to have to tie up, but I did notice the cute Rubik's Cube thing, so I don't know if they revisit that in the future or not, but that was kind of cute. The one-time thing. So, Chris, what do you think? Are there going to be some plot holes here with William leaving?
So we sort of touched on it earlier. I think there seem to be plot holes now that I'm kind of giving them the credit that they're going to resolve at some point in time.
Okay.
Yeah, we did mention that William might come back and there could be another argument sort of deal.
All right. Next paragraph. P-Fruit says, Mia is the Olicity baby. So I guess the transitions in season 7, episode 8 were actually clues. It makes sense. They have a son who is tech-oriented like Felicity and a daughter who is a fighter like Oliver. Plus, they get to parallel Emiko Oliver's relationship in the present with Mia Williams in the future. Yeah, I did not forget about the transitions that they were making back and forth. That was a good call, P. Fruit. Michelle, do you have anything to say here?
Yeah, we touched on this before. Like I said, 99% chance that is the Olicity baby. Part of me just wants to do that 1% chance of maybe they might do something different, but it's most likely the Olicity baby.
Unless it's Chris's baby.
Shh, don't tell anyone. Jeez.
Next paragraph. I remember Oliver randomly mentioning the scroll and key in season 7, episode 8. I'm wondering if that's going to play into the flash forwards because Mia has a giant key tattoo. We know from Oliver's history that all of his tattoos had significance. I'm thinking William is the scroll and Mia is the key in this equation, and that's why they are being brought together after all these years. Interesting. I am the gatekeeper. Are you the keymaster?
I forgot she had a key tattoo.
I did too.
Did.
I'm
P-Fruit's
fired.
on it. P-Fruit should be on this podcast. Just say that right there. And then the last paragraph that she wrote. Lastly, I've noticed that many aspects of this season are like season 1. Random things happening like Walter buying Unideck Industries, only that for them to later reveal that it was a major plot point because that company built the earthquake machine. I think they are doing that again with the fires in the Glades. We found out Emiko's mom was shot and it was covered up with a building fire. Earlier this season, she helped stop a group of men who were setting a theater on fire in the Glades. They said someone who was buying up the burnt properties for cheap. I think that's Dante / the Ninth Circle, and it plays a part in how the Glades rise. I don't think she's wrong there. I think that that's something that we just have to come back to because they had to take the divert in mid-season. I think she's got it head on there. Chris, what do you think?
100% right. I read my mind.
Michelle?
They have to bring this Dante, Diaz, and Glades thing together. I don't think they would be spending this much time on Dante if it didn't have any sort of tie-in with the rise of the Glades.
So we're all agreed Emiko's mom is not dead. She's actually running Unideck Industries, and she is destroying Star City.
Yeah, she's the actual leader of the Ninth Circle. Good job, SP.
Well, it's not me. It's P-Fruit that pulled it all together. So thank you very much, P-Fruit. We really appreciate it every time you give us feedback. And for anybody else, you can give us feedback as well. We'll read it on the show.
That's right. And it helps when I don't lose track of where I am in the show notes, doesn't it?
It does. Edit!
So at this point of the show, it's that part where we like to remind you, hey, the Starling Tribune is in fact part of a network of shows that you can find over at GonnaGeek.com. We got 20 plus different shows in the network that cover a variety of topics. You're watching us, so you know we like to talk about TV shows in the network. But hey, we also like to talk about tabletop gaming, video gaming, geek culture, general geek news, tech news. We've got all sorts of stuff that are going to suit your geeky and or nerdy tastes. And each week, we try to highlight one specific show, give you a little taste of it. And this week, I'm going to shamelessly self-promote, and we're going to talk about one of my shows, which is the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast, specifically episode 347, entitled Talking Spencer and Locke 2 with David Pepos. So guys, question for you. What do you think? Would you want to read a book that's like Calvin and Hobbes meets Sin City?
Totally.
Who wouldn't?
So that is exactly what Spencer and Locke is. It's a detective-esque Sin City story about a boy and his stuffed panther that are grown-ups solving crime in the streets. David had talked to us 100 episodes back on Volume 1. Volume 2 is out. He gave us all the news on the upcoming sequel, plus the news on the movie option and what's going on there. So there could be a Spencer and Locke movie coming. So if this is a comic book and a story that sounds like something you'd be really interested in, please go check out episode 347 of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast. You can hear a lot more about Spencer and Locke And if you want to get it, you can go to your local comic book shop right now. It's in previews, starts coming out, I believe, in April. So you can start putting that on your list now and get it at your local shop. It's coming out from Action Labs. Looks like a fantastic book, and I'm super excited that David came to talk to us again about it. And it's already on my pull list.
You guys are doing some magic over there on ATGN.
Hey, we just got lucky there. David seems to like us for some strange reason. I don't know why. That all being said, it is time for us to start shutting this thing down. So a big thank you to all of our chat room participants over at Geeks.live. But not only them, thank you to everyone who downloads the audio episode from StarlingTribune.com or catches the video replay at YouTube.com/GonnaGeek.
We have an Amazon skill, so you can enable it on your device. And we also have a Discord server where you can come and talk with us. We're using the new spoiler tag quite a bit until we record. So you can find that at GonnaGeek.com/Discord. Remember, you can always find us as we record live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays at www.geeks.live.
We would love to hear from you. We are the Starling Tribune on Facebook and Instagram, at Starling Tribune on Twitter, and you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. Well, this just brings us to the end of another great episode. Any last words before we sign off? At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag baby daddy.
At the Chris Farrell.
Hashtag still no hosses this week.
And I am at Michelle Ely signing off with hashtag gonna miss those terrific balls. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at GonnaGeek.com or check out our archive at StarlingTribune.com. Visit GonnaGeek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at Incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.
So thank you everyone for joining us live. We are shutting it down.
Bye.